What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabril, and I'm here with
Steve. Hope everyone's doing well out there.
And for you guys who have never seen the show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming, but we always like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, what you been playing?
Yeah, the usual, Steam Deck stuff. I've been kind of just knocking out of this, not too much of my backlog, but just things I wanted to kind of replay on Steam Deck. So, Devil May Cry 5 and a couple other things on there. I don't have much more to say on that, just that it still amazes me how well a lot of this stuff runs on handheld, where, besides, like, obviously some graphical stuff, most of it just still runs as smooth. The frames are great. It doesn't crash. Nothing like that. So, still just super high on the Steam Deck. On PlayStation, two big things I've been kind of spreading my time with. Still slowly going through Horizon. Still just getting, the more I play it, the more positive I feel. I do get this sort of slog sometimes where it's like the controls of, and I had the same issue with the first Horizon, where I just feel like some of the controls just still aren't as tight as they need to be. Just sometimes Aloy's, when I'm on, especially when you're sky platforming, when you're like, grabbing on and jumping on from beam to beam, and she just won't latch correctly, and she just falls. I'm in the water, and I gotta swim around, do the whole thing. It's just like little things like that just still kind of irk me, and it makes me almost waste some time, where sometimes I only have maybe an hour or two to play, and the fact that I spent 30 minutes just because she didn't want to correctly grab the platform or whatever it is. But I still like a lot of it. I do kind of like where the story's going. It's going in a complete opposite direction. You see enemies who just sort of stick out when you're not used to going. I'm gonna, I guess, try to avoid some spoilers, but you see some enemies who are different, not a clan. They're just way advanced. So it's cool to see that aspect, that not everything regressed, in this post-apocalyptic, futuristic setting. So I like where it's going. I'm just slowly kind of playing it. I do feel bad. I feel bad every time I play it. That's like, man, Elden Ring just kind of took the wind out of the sail, because I think Elden Ring and Horizon are obviously super different experiences. And I feel bad that, and I kind of see it on Twitter now that a lot of people are feeling this way, where they're like, yeah, Horizon's actually really good. I know people were kind of hard on it just when, unfortunately came out days before Elden Ring, but gladly it's still this really solid game, and I think it's starting to sell really well. I see it coming back up on the charts and everything. The other thing I restarted / kind of went back to, it's Final Fantasy XIV. It's, obviously everyone knows, big online MMO, and it's been something that I've always had on my docket for a while. I bought this on PlayStation, on PS4, back when it re-released on PS4, so I think like 2014 my account says. And then I had bought it on Steam not too long ago, maybe about a year ago. And luckily you can just use one account, so a lot of my saves transferred over and things like that. The big thing for me that's always sort of kept me away from it is just the amount of content that's in there, and the mass world, and so many little things you need to learn. But obviously the big thing is the monthly subscription. So I don't know. I'm starting to really enjoy the game. So it's at that point where I think I may have to. I didn't do a recurring subscription. I just did a 1 month, and it's gonna be one of those things where it's like, when I know I have the time, I'll be able to jump in, and I'll be more willing to pay for the month instead of paying for like a year subscription and not getting the maximum out of it. But it's finally good to like jump in. It is one of those things though that everyone always says, oh, you have to get a couple hours in before it gets good. Let me tell you, Final Fantasy XIV, it takes a good almost 10 hours before it gets anywhere, and it's rough. It's not something. I have someone else who asked me if I could recommend it, and I said, if you don't have time to just get through nonsense, and I'm talking like generic, we're big anime guys, so we've seen the world of, different versions of MMOs where those first missions are like kill a bee and you get it to experience, and that is Final Fantasy 14. Those first couple hours, you're killing Hornets, you're bringing one letter from one character to another, just to them say, okay, cool, now give them this, and you bring back a pair of boots. Like the stupid missions, and it's unfortunately you do have to do those. You can kind of mainline those for a while, and you won't be like leveled, like capped or anything like that early on. But it is kind of nice to be in this world. It's cool to see so many different races, and once you get past that slog, which I do wish they redid the beginning so you can almost skip it, because one thing that's stopping me from trying another character is having to do that all again. So definitely not wanting to go back to that. But once you start exploring different realms, different worlds, different parts of the map, different characters, different organizations, you see how much just alive this world is, and it's really nuts, and you see why there's a monthly subscription, whereas most MMOs and free to play games, try to push that free aspect, where this one you have to buy the game and then on top buy a subscription, which I know is kind of rough, but if you look at the diehards, the World of Warcraft and things like that, that's obviously more in that vein. But it works really well, so I'm really enjoying my time with it. I think this is my first full-fledged, I guess, like jumping into an MMO to this extent. I've played RuneScape here and there, and I don't know what you even consider the original RuneScape and all these little games like that, but it's exciting. I do try to find the maximum way to play it, just at all times. Again, it's hard because I got lucky enough that I bought Final Fantasy forever ago on PlayStation, so it's all synced up on one account. So unfortunately I play on the PS4 in my bedroom, which is that's a weird experience. But then if I'm where my PlayStation 5 is, I can sign in, and thank God they did a free PS5 upgrade so I can play it on there, and if that's busy then I can do it on my computer as well on Steam, and it's all just cloud saving. There is a way to get it running on Steam Deck. You have to do a lot of jumping through hoops to get it running correctly. I've seen a lot of people do it, and it claims to work, and they're working on it from my understanding. That'd be the biggest thing. I think it just doesn't make a lot of sense for me, because then I would have to, obviously it's an MMO, so you need to be online, so I would have to hook up my Steam Deck to maybe my hotspot on my phone if I was somewhere where I didn't have internet. And it just doesn't seem practical in the sense where it's like, well, if I'm somewhere with Wi-Fi, which is most likely my home, I don't travel that often, then I have the three other ways to play it, from PS4 to PS5 to my PC. Why would I want to try to play it on Steam Deck, and of course it being designed mainly for PC, a lot of keys, a lot of inputs. It works well on PlayStation. They found a pretty creative way to do it with the triggers, which opens little sub menus. Obviously it's faster when you have all the numbers on your keyboard and everything like that, so I just don't even think cramping that down even to more on a Steam Deck, even with the back paddles, would work that well. So I kind of, unless it goes to the point where it's just easily verified, where I can just download it through the Steam OS, I don't think I'm that excited to play it on there, just because text is a lot pretty small too, because there's so much going on. So it just doesn't feel right for Steam Deck. Again, unless they really verify it and tweak a version for it, I wouldn't be excited. But I'm really putting some hours into it. I'm getting to the point where I'm getting some cool cutscenes, some cool characters, a lot of Final Fantasy themes, thematic things you get. Obviously, crystals, lights, chaos, darkness, in ways that you haven't. I can't really say haven't seen since maybe 1 through 6. It's been a while. 1 through 5. It's been a while since we've seen that super core stuff. Obviously, until we get Final Fantasy 16, which was kind of the exciting thing for me to see. I wanted to see why everyone was so excited to see pretty much a lot of the crew from Final Fantasy 14 moving, are the ones who are, running the show for Final Fantasy 16. So I'm pretty excited. So that's all I've been playing, putting a lot of time into it. It's weird, because it's just weird to play the same game so often and do something so different. It's not just really my type of game. So for so long I avoided these kind of games, like the WoWs and everything like that, and I thought Final Fantasy 14 would be the one to get me, and it's grabbed me for a little bit of times here and there throughout the years, but I think I'm kind of devoted now, where I think I consider myself a Final Fantasy 14 player, just not to the extent that I can add, put in 40 hours a week to it. But that's all I've been up to. What have you been playing?
Yeah, nothing really that new. I finished my replay of GTA 5 on Steam Deck. I was like, I'm just going to make it the whole way through. This is probably, I don't know, the 5th, I think, playthrough I've done. Something like that. It's fun. It's GTA 5. It's not a massive departure from experience elsewhere, but it's cool to be able to play it completely kind of front to back handhelds. And so now I'm gonna dive into how the online runs, because I didn't want to try the online until I beat the story mode. So I'll report how that works. I don't think there is account syncing across devices. I don't think. So I don't think I can access the one that I've made on PlayStation all these years, but I'll report back on that. I'm not sure. Also playing Vampire Survivors all the time.
Oh yeah. Always.
Yeah, that game's great. I'm making a lot more headway in there. I have lots of good characters. There's this one old dude I use all the time that starts out with garlic, and it's just sick. And just starting from that point onwards, bro, like it's a game changer. And I'm just, unlocking areas as I get deeper and deeper, and just having a really good time with it. And I've kind of gotten into a habit where it's like it's my passive game. So like I'll throw on a record and then like play Vampire Survivors for like the duration of the record. So I'll do it like maybe an hour, 45 minutes, and that's kind of like been my like weekend thing. Also Crazy Taxi, I've been kind of slipping that in. Again, I've kind of like receded into like my the same games that I played a lot for in the past. And then also I've kind of restarted Final Fantasy VI. I was pretty deep into it, and I had a save file that I had on another device, but I was like, I kind of want to play this on Steam Deck, and I don't mind restarting. So I've restarted that. I'm very early on. I'm like maybe the first 45 minutes or so like that. So I'm still gonna be chipping at that. This is the Game Boy version. I don't think I've ever played this version before. I don't think it's like that different. There's minor difference in some of the visuals and stuff like that, but yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna go all the way with it, but I'm still kind of just trying out different things with the Steam Deck, and I'm definitely, hopefully this week, maybe later today, I would like to push my Steam Deck a little bit more with the emulation and see how high I can get. Because I'm getting a lot of questions from people who like don't have Steam Decks. We're like, have you tried emulating this and this and this and this? And I'm like, no, I haven't really tried anything basically past like PS2. So I want to try more bold things and see where I can, like, I've definitely had games that don't run great on it, emulating wise. That's more so I think I just have to like play around with the configuration a little bit. I had a weird slowdown thing with the herbs. I don't know if you remember that game. But I actually bought a copy of the Herbs Sims in the City for Xbox because it's supposedly backwards compatible, but for some reason my 360 will not play it, and obviously that didn't carry forward. So the Xbox Series X definitely doesn't play it, but I took on my 360 and I was like, I should be able to play it here, and it's not working on that either. So I ended up in this position before where it's like I really just need to hunt down an original Xbox, because I have multiple games right now that are having trouble with backwards compatibility, and that all can be solved by just running it on original hardware. So at some point I'm gonna hunt that down, because the emulating is kind of weird, and I have a copy of the game, so I kind of either I'm just gonna buy a copy of it for PS2 and just play it on PS2, or I'll just get an Xbox at some point if I can find one reasonably priced. So by the next episode, it's very possible that I'll be playing on an OG Xbox, because I really want to. I've wanted one for a long time, but the problem is, like, I'm a retro game collector. I've paid decent money for different things, but I always have a realm of like reasonability for me, where it's like I don't care about what the demand is for something necessarily. Like, I feel like there is like a reasonable price and an unreasonable price, and I'm just not gonna spend 150 plus on an OG Xbox. It's just not happening. And so I find them all the time, but people are asking like super unreasonable money. So like for me, it's kind of like sub 100 is where I'm willing to go for Xbox. So that's kind of what's holding me back right now. I'm gonna keep an eye out. Hopefully, maybe I can hunt something down in the next few days. Maybe do a pickup in person or something like that. And yeah, but that's pretty much it. Like it's been nothing really new. I'm in a lull pretty much, I think, until Stray, and then after that, like maybe Saints Row. But it's gonna be a quiet rest of the summer for me, and then it's things are really not going to pick up for me in games until I think like fall probably, when we get into the Ragnarok territory, maybe Last of Us Remake, stuff like that, the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. But yeah, for now it's going to be really quiet, so that's really all I've been playing, and that's probably all I'm going to play for the foreseeable future for sure.
Yeah, it is interesting that we're in this weird sort of extra calm. Like, the summers are usually pretty calm for gaming and releases, but I feel like we're even in extra calm. Like,
yeah,
it's just
for
like
sure.
even extra, just with all the delays and everything that's sort of happened.
Yeah, it's kind of just like what Sonic right now. Like the only thing that I think some people are talking about, not everybody, but yeah, the Sonic Origins collection I think is the only thing really that's come out kind of recently.
Yeah, which I forgot to mention. I still am dabbling in that. Just I don't have much more to say. There's a couple patches that they say they fix things, but I'm playing, some of the bonus missions and stuff, which is fun to play some twists on levels, but it's still just sort of a very pretty package with a bare bones gift inside is the way I'd like to describe it, because it's just kind of there.
Yeah, I've heard some people are having some problems to the point that one of the devs like apologized and he's the Origins. I mean, he's the Mania guy, right?
Yeah, he was he was the main guy, I guess, who was also in charge of. Looks like I didn't realize until he came out and talking, where it's like the guys from Mania who, high praise Mania, worked very hard on this. But as apparent from my understanding, and this is just from deep diving, they were tasked with pretty much making a version of Sonic 3 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles together or whatever, obviously to pass the music, and now that we know it's 100% confirmed, I feel like it's always been confirmed.
Oh, the Michael
we
Jackson.
all know that the Michael Jackson helped direct some of the music for Sonic 3. Apparently they were tasked with just doing that, so they were going to apparently just release a Sonic 3 port that then eventually got folded into this collection, so they don't have, I guess it's weird. They haven't gotten to be able to completely come out. But I just, from my digging, from talking to a few people and some of the stuff, apparently that's what it is. We were supposed to get just like a re-release of Sonic 3, obviously with some edited music and small edited things that I guess due to licensing they couldn't. Then they were forced to just shove it into this collection, which is unfortunate, because actually that part of the game runs actually the best in my opinion, is Sonic 3 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Yeah, it was a tricky thing before this collection came out. You remember I told you. I was like, all they need to do is just give me a good reason to get this. That's all they need to do. Like, I have my eye on it already. I got the money set aside. I'm ready. Just give me a good reason to buy another collection, and I'll get it at some point. But funnily enough, it seems like they've basically done the opposite, where it's like they've given me plenty of reasons where I'm like, maybe I'm not fiending. At some point, I'm sure when this is like patched to all hell and running super nice and smooth, I'll probably jump into it. But for right now, I'm gonna give it a little bit more like marinating time because it looks a little wonky. I'm seeing like some people's videos of like some crazy graphical issues that I'm like, I think it's Sonic 2 that I think is like really like having the issues, which is funnily like I'm probably not gonna be playing the most of Sonic 2. I was probably gonna mostly focus on Sonic 3 anyways. But yeah, I want them to kind of iron that out. That's kind of weird. It kind of strikes my brain in the same place as like when I saw the GTA remasters, where it's like, how are you guys breaking these old games? Like, like what are you guys doing? Like, these games these games have run amazingly for the longest period of time. This is not even like the GTA remasters in the way that those were kind of dormant for a while, and they did a lot of stuff to them. Where like these were running like beautifully for like the past since like 1992, 1995, and so to like bring them back, and they've definitely done work with that. I acknowledge that, but it's like, bro, like how did you even break these? Like, I don't understand. Like they're running on incredibly powerful hardware. They look like the graphical style hasn't been overhauled at all. It's not like they changed the art style or anything like that. So I'm like, what the hell did you guys do? I don't know. But again, I'm not a dev, so I'll leave it to them to kind of figure out that whole thing. But that was a strange one.
Yeah, it is this weird package, especially since I'm mainly playing it on my Steam Deck, and I can literally launch, emulated the Sonic 3, the original Sonic 3.
With the music and everything,
Yeah, and when you play them side by side, again, yeah, sure, the new package looks slightly cleaner and colors and stuff like that, but there is sort of this off feeling, and again, for the people who just haven't played Sonic ever or in a long time, you may not notice it. I play these games at least once or twice a year. I run through them, and so I just know when it's off. I know when just the slightest sort of mechanic is off, which is unfortunate. That they, in fixing some stuff, they broke other things. It's unfortunate though. It is sad.
It's always Sonic, isn't it?
Yeah, he can't catch a break. So who knows? Who knows? Yeah, we can get into the stories. There's some exciting one at first because it's something that I know I was starting to get worried. Not that I was in the discourse of demanding it even had to be this year, but it's the story obviously of God of War Ragnarok. So, God of War Ragnarok is officially launching on November 9th this year for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Following rumors about a delay into 2023 and reassurance from the developers, the sequel to 2018's God of War reboot is indeed set to arrive this year. The news was accompanied by a short new CG trailer titled Father and Son. Pretty awesome trailer, I think. I don't want to see any more of the game. Sony has announced that the pre-orders will open on July 15th, and they showed off 4 separate editions of the game, one including a full replica of Thor's Mjolnir, is the way I pronounce it. I know there's other ways people pronounce it. But yeah, so after this whole nonsense with the big Twitter leaker, the Snitch, who's been leaking lots of PlayStation news, that all this announcement was supposed to be last week, and then all of a sudden nothing happened, and there was this back and forth. Cory Barlog has been trolling somewhat on there. We got an official date, which again is, I almost thought it was fake when someone sent it to me because it's a Wednesday, if I'm not wrong. But obviously, then I think Cory Barlog even tweeted out that I guess that day is considered Odin's Day, so it all sort of makes sense. Really weird. I think it's still weird to be a PlayStation first party. One of the PlayStation first party games to be launching on not a Tuesday or a Friday, but I'm really excited. I'm excited for this game to finally come out. Again, if it would have been delayed, it would have been a bummer, but I would have more than happy to just accept it because this is one of those games I want it to. When I launch this game, I want it to be completely perfect experience in my opinion. We got the different editions they showed. The launch edition, which brings a pre-order bonus. I think there's a digital deluxe edition is the other one they're kind of considering that has PS4 theme and avatar, which is really weird because PS5 doesn't have themes. So if we get it on PS5, well, you have to get it digitally on PS5, but you get the PS4 theme, which is awkward because when are you really gonna go launch your PlayStation 4 and want to go put the Ragnarok theme on it? But the big thing is the 2 other editions, which is the collector's editions and the I don't know how to pronounce it, the Mjolnir edition, which is the bigger of the collector's editions, which is really cool. It comes in a nice little case. Got the replica of Mjolnir, some dice. I don't think I'm gonna get the collector's edition, but for those out there who are excited for this, we don't have any pricing. That's all going to be revealed the 15th. A little caveat, and they kind of hide it on there, not really, but in parentheses, the collector's edition does not bring a physical disc. It will bring you a digital redeem code for it. So, small awareness out there, because a friend of mine was super excited to buy this until I hit him with it's a digital redeem is what you're going to get for it. So, but I'm excited. November, not too far off. It's kind of right around the corner. We'll be playing this in no time. So, Jabril, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's really exciting stuff. I honestly didn't think they were going to make it, to be honest. Just because, we're coming up on mid-July. I hadn't really heard much about it. So I was like, it's probably going to slip to the early part of 2023. But no, it looks like they're going to make it. Trailer looks really dope. I'm kind of with you on that. I don't really need to see any more. I understand what God of War is. Again, this is a sequel. It's definitely continuing what they built upon in the first one. So I don't really need to be sold on the narrative or anything like that. I kind of got a good enough vibe for what they're going for. And unless there's significant changes to the gameplay that they want to demonstrate, I'm kind of good. I think I'll just kind of go media blackout mode and just kind of let it do its thing. And when it's time to pick it up, I'll pick it up. It's interesting, it's also coming out on PS4 this late into the cycle. I always keep kind of an eye on their approach to last gen, and I want to see how that performance is on PS4, just because you remember on that kind of transitionary point when we got Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, and we were both really impressed with what they were able to extract out of the PS4. So now we're here on the tail end of 2022 with the new God of War game, and Santa Monica are no chumps in terms of having really demanding video games. And so I'm really excited to kind of see what they're able to do with the PS4, because like these are like the masters at work here. And you know, like sometimes I get like why some people get like a little disappointed when they see that kind of last gen, like, oh, you still doing it, because again you have to like play to the lowest common denominator at points here. But I would like to, you know, remind people that like it's one thing, I think, if you see like your run-of-the-mill studio have these platforms all the way from the high end to the super low end, and so you know it kind of balances somewhere in the middle there, where it's not too demanding but it's not the weakest thing in the world, where it's like I have confidence in a lot of the first parties at Sony's to give you something that if you're playing on the PS5 feels definitively like a PS5 experience, but then also have something for PS4 gamers that I think is going to be an incredible experience for them as well. So shout out to them for still being able to pull that off this late, because I would imagine, just kind of my projections, is that this can't possibly last that much longer. Like, you know, I mean, this is hardware from 2013 here. There is going to be a natural point where first party video games from some of these major publishers are just not going to be able to run. Like it just happens eventually, and I'm just curious to see where that is. So God of War is not going to be the one to make that full jump, but one team will be, and I'm curious to see what that is. Overall, yeah, trailer looks dope. I'm really excited about it. I actually the other day went on YouTube and looked up the cutscene at the end of the first one that I won't say, but it's an arrival of a particular character that's really exciting. And I just wanted to kind of like get myself hyped about it, because that was one of my favorite moments of the first game, is kind of that it's like a post-credit scene where like a certain character arrives, and I'm like, that's just dope as hell. And yeah, no, I'm just glad they're going to be able to make it. November 9th sounds like a solid time to go. It's going to be a quiet fall for Sony, really, other than I think what's Last of Us in September, I think. That's kind of it. Like, I don't think anybody else is really ready to go at that point. Everything else, you know, Insomniac and stuff like that, that's all going into 2023 at that point. So it's kind of like a great time for them to kind of dominate that fall, and then going into the holiday season, you know, it's kind of for them. You know, I don't really see anybody who's going to be able to cannibalize the attention there. There are major games that are going to be launching around that time as well, but nothing that I think is close enough within to the same kind of demographic that's going to pull away from Ragnarok. Like, I think Pokemon will be able to like super be okay on its own. That won't really have significant impact on God of War. So I think they got like a bit of a clear runway there. So it's going to be an exciting fall for them for sure.
Yeah, super exciting, and yeah, they're going to be dominating the discussion. Though, you know, the two games that are releasing, Last of Us Part 1 and God of War Ragnarok, just always in the center of not controversy, but it's always that fuel for the disgusting console wars that for some reason spawning in, and those are the two big ones that are going to be hitting this year. So it's exciting. I'm excited to play God of War. I mean, again, it just something about these new God of War games speak to me way more than the old ones. So I'm excited to see where they're gonna go with this. You know, from the way they're talking about it, this is the last one in this genre, I guess, if you think about it, in the Norse. But we never know. That could have all changed, and the ending is something crazy. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny you mentioned that, because another thing I did kind of fire up that I forgot to mention was God of War 1. I kind of fired it up and I played it for a bit, and through the PlayStation Plus Premium streaming thing, and it was cool. To be honest with you, and this might be like a hot take, like those games, there's something about that original trilogy that just doesn't really resonate with me anymore now that I have these new ones. These just are more my speed. The very kind of like hack and slash dude bro aesthetic thing of the original is just not really my thing. Wasn't really my thing that much then either. Like, for me, when I was much younger, if I was going to do hack and slash, I was always more of a DMC guy, and I know people don't really draw those connections, but for me, like, I only had so much like tolerance for that gameplay style, so I was like, I'd rather do like a DMC. And then once Bayonetta came, that became like my number one. So for me, like, those old ones, I'm like, alright, just because there's something about the depth of 2018's where like actions have consequences, and you see the impact of the actions that they take on Kratos as a character, and how you could see that conflict within himself of like wanting to be a good dad while simultaneously containing this beast inside of him, Where the original trilogy is just a whole different vibe, really, where it's just like kill everything. If it goes in front of you, kill it. Where like in the first one, like, or in 2018, like he kills a lot of things, but there's like a hesitancy to it. Like he doesn't want to be in that position, really. He would prefer to stay on his little farm and have his wife and kid, but obviously things are not playing out that way. So yeah, I feel like I kind of got like spoiled by 2018, where it's like now I don't really care to play the older ones, which I know is like heresy to some people who like love the original trilogy, and I super respect that. But I think they did a different thing with 2018 that I find a lot more compelling than the original trilogy, personally.
No, yeah, I completely agree. And I think the big discourse of it agrees with that as well.
Yeah, like I could, and like again, I don't want to offend anybody who's like an original fan of them, because I totally get the appeal of the original ones, especially if you were there and the nostalgia associated with that. But I think almost by all metrics, 2018 is better than that trilogy, just personally. So we got our second story, really interesting one, about some potential shelved remakes that Rockstar had planned. So following recent rumors, Kotaku can confirm that from its sources that Rockstar Games is currently focused on developing only GTA 6 and has shelved all remakes following the poor reception of GTA the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. According to Tez, who is a reliable GTA insider on Twitter, as per a reliable source with clear accuracy on Rockstar plans, remasters of the GTA 4 and Red Dead Redemption 1 were on the table a few years ago, but Rockstar chose not to proceed with the projects in mind. So yeah, as a big Rockstar fan, I'm like kind of conflicted on this, where it's like, I have the means of which to play GTA 4. I have the disc that I can play backwards compatible on Xbox, which I did not too long ago, and I have a Steam Deck, which is also on Steam. So GTA 4 and Red Dead 1 are not things that are inaccessible to me, but they are inaccessible to a lot of people. And so I want to be sympathetic to that. Like, there are people like in the PlayStation ecosystem who don't care to really stream these things, who don't really have the means of playing GTA 4 especially. And I think Red Dead Redemption 1 is only available via streaming, if I'm not mistaken, as well, because it's a PS3 game, right? That and Undead Nightmare. Yeah. Yep. So if you're in the PlayStation ecosystem, it's a bit of a worse experience, because not everybody wants to stream games, and a lot of people don't have the Wi-Fi to stream games. So these are generally inaccessible. So a remaster and a remake would be awesome to get from Rockstar. And so from that perspective, I think that would be really cool. But the problem is, for me, like GTA, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, that whole mouthful of a name, was such a botched execution and such a lazily put together collection that if it's going to be in any way reminiscent of that, I'm glad they canceled it, personally. Like, I'd rather you leave it alone than pull with that stunt that they pulled there with those games. And because I've revisited those games maybe a month ago. I think I fired it up again. I fired each one up for maybe 10 minutes just to see if there was like significant upgrades, and there really wasn't. Like, it's essentially the same game, still running terribly, looks weird. Yeah, still for the most part the most playable one is San Andreas, but like, I mean, and again, it doesn't help, like, there's problems with those games to begin with, that like GTA 4 and Red Dead 1, they're still generally play pretty good, and they run pretty good. They have different like shooting mechanics, but like I wouldn't trust them with that, because supposedly they overhauled the shooting mechanic systems of the original, the PS2 trilogy as well, and we saw how that played out. So yeah, I think it's maybe for the best that they focus on the GTA 6 game that they kind of had in incubation for a long time. However, I think they should honestly consider that. Yeah, maybe they don't plan on doing a remaster, but just a simple re-release I think could go a long way. Yeah. With the whole kind of PS2 on PS3 thing. Like, I know it's not the easiest thing in the world, but they do have working 360 versions. I feel like, is there really no way to reverse engineer the working versions that didn't get developed on cell architecture to run on the PS4, thus PS5 backwards compatibility thing? Like, is there really no way to do that? I don't know. I'm not a developer, but I feel like that might be in their best interest. Just release the games as is. They don't have to do a whole bunch of crazy work to it, because when they do, they start botching things. But I think that could go a long way for people. So at the very least, it's like, hey, if you're in the PlayStation ecosystem, you have a version of that you could play. It's not cleaned up with like a fine sheen of praise. But again, take it from somebody who played these games very recently. I played GTA 4 as of 3 weeks ago on the Steam Deck, and then I played it front to back with all the DLCs maybe a year ago. And then Red Dead 1 I played maybe 6 months ago on Xbox. All of these games I think still hold up really, really well for the most part. And sometimes, yeah, like if you go from like Red Dead 2, which is like a uniquely polished case, yeah, it could feel a little clunky. I get it, because that game feels better than 90% of the games that are out, period. But I would say overall, like, those games are playable, so I think Rockstar should really consider finding a way to just very simple re-release. I think could go a long way for people. What did you think about this?
Yeah, I'm almost in the same boat as you, where I was like, part of me was like really excited. I'm like, you know what, I do want them kind of focus on GTA 6. Not that I want it to be rushed out, and they won't rush it out in general, but I just want the saga that is GTA 5 to be kind of over. I just want to move on to something new. But I'm also in the same boat where it's like I ended up never getting GTA the Trilogy, the definitive edition, for multiple reasons. Obviously, the biggest thing that is just it was busted. So when I look at it, I'm like, well, maybe if they were gonna give these the same treatment, I wouldn't want it, but especially now that I guess I'm sort of on the back burner playing GTA 4. I try to jump in there on my Steam Deck every once in a while when I'm watching something, and just dabble a couple missions or just fill it up with cheat codes just to do a bunch of nonsense. The game plays solidly on there. I know it's not the most polished thing. Then I look at the Red Dead Redemption 1 sort of talk, and it's weird because, and again, I know I don't know if privilege is the word, but where we have the access through it on the Xbox One X, when that was sort of coming out and everything. They did a patch for Red Dead Redemption 1. I think I ended up showing you back to back what it looked like.
Yeah, it's like a 4K patch, yeah.
Yeah, when they did the 4K 60 patch on it. And, besides some of the controls, I guess, Red Dead Redemption 1 on Xbox anyway, plays as good as I think as it can, unless you really went in there and worked. And the last time we saw them really go in there, look what happened with the Trilogy. So that's where I'm in a bitter moment. But then I forget I'm in a spot where some other people aren't. There are people who only have PlayStation consoles, and that's it. You can't. There is no way right now, like you said, natively to play GTA 4 or Red Dead Redemption 1. I don't think Red Dead 1 is even on PC, and maybe only through the Rockstar launcher. But so it would be nice to kind of have these everywhere again. I think I'm more in line with you, where they should sort of remaster them in the way that other companies have remastered the games. You got to remove some songs because of licensing issues and things like that. But just get them up to par, just so they're continuously moving forward. I don't think they need to or should go to the point of trying to redo them like the Trilogy did with the new art style or anything like that. So it's unfortunate. It's like I would love to see that, and it'd be cool to have if they release the Trilogy, then you get GTA 4, because before the Trilogy release, we were pretty much assuming like, well, they have to do a GTA 4 definitive edition. Put all the DLC back bundled in there, and now the game can move forward almost forever. Obviously, that just all fell apart just because Rockstar didn't do the Trilogy. We know it wasn't them, so it's just a bitter moment where it's like, if that's what you were gonna do to it, that's fine. I do think you kind of owe it to your audience, especially those who purchased the Trilogy, to at least give them access to continue forward with GTA 4. I mean, obviously we know GTA 5 is available everywhere, but GTA 4 at least is so just locked onto certain systems and devices that just half your audience, if you split the console audience, half your audience can't unless they hook up their PS3 and do it that way. Where on the other side, and again, that's thanks to Microsoft, you can just literally put it into your Xbox One, One X, or your Series X, or if you have it digitally, your Series S. So it is unfortunate, but it makes a lot of sense. I hope that if this is all true and it ended up being that all hands are on deck for GTA 6, and hoping that we don't have to wait as long as everyone's pretty much expecting us to.
Yeah, and I think another thing worth mentioning, and you kind of briefly kind of mentioned it, is yeah, the GTA PS2 remasters or remakes or whatever you want to consider that, the definitive editions, weren't developed internally. They were kind of leased out to a third party, and then we saw how that kind of played out. And it was kind of reverse engineered versions of like the phone versions or something like that.
Yeah,
They did
almost.
some weird wonky thing. Technically, when Rockstar has handled things internally, they've turned out really well. Because I have to remind people, GTA 4, GTA 5, and Red Dead Redemption 1 all came out on the same game generation. And a lot of people forget that. They're all 360 games or PS3 games, however you want to consider that. And GTA 5 was the one that was cleaned up, re-released on the next generation, and then cleaned up and re-released again. And so if you go on to GTA 5 right now, you're getting a gorgeous experience. If you hadn't touched it since the PS3, if you jump into now, like, that game looks fairly new. Like, I wouldn't say it's like running like, you know, Horizon. Like, it doesn't look like a brand new game, but it feels like when you're looking around that world, yeah, it's a real 60 frames per second. You know, like the 4K textures look really good. The world is running good. There's lots of content in there, and again, that is technically a 360 era game. So that's another thing worth noting, that like they have the capabilities of cleaning these games up. Now, GTA 5 in its state when it came out was already kind of pushing the edge of that kind of generation, what that hardware was actually capable of. So yeah, I know it's a lot more ambitious of a game than those two, even though they come from the same generations. But it just shows what they can do when they handle things internally and kind of just port things over and clean them up and just take advantage of that new hardware. And so I feel like we could get the exact same treatment on the PlayStation side with these games, cleaned up, you know, bring GTA 4 forward. But yeah, I don't know if it's one of those situations where it's like, as of right now, the only people who can't play it are PS3, and because of the cell architecture, those are the one people who maybe it's just a lot more work to bring it forward. I don't know if that's the reason why. But from what I understand, there is a perfectly good PC version that they could use. It's not like a version of Red Dead and GTA 4 doesn't exist outside the PlayStation ecosystem, so I think they could use the PC ports and just bring that to PS5, and that would work really well too, as well, because people port PC games to PlayStation 5 all the time, and they work great. So yeah, I think they should really look into it, because I think the potential is really high, especially once we start going, you know, farther. You know, once we go into the GTA 6, you know, people are going to want to go back and experience that, and it would be a real shame. There's like an entire generation of younger people who have never experienced GTA 4, because at this point, okay, if they have these consoles. 1 and 2, realistically, people are not going to go back to these. They're top down. They're a whole different developer. It makes sense why they're not really touching those. They got the definitive edition, and as crappy as that collection was, it's available on modern consoles. So if people are like, "Hey, I want to play San Andreas 3 and Vice City," they can. But there's a whole generation of people who have never touched GTA 4 on the PlayStation side, who have never played Ballad of Gay Tony, who don't know anything about the Lost and the Damned and that whole situation. And who don't know anything about Nico Bellic and his crazy experiences in Liberty City. And that's an incredible game that, like, as somebody who's played both of them very recently, I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to say that the story of GTA 4 isn't leaps and bounds better than GTA 5. GTA 5 has a fun world and great, like, you know, strangers and freaks, little random encounters and stuff like that. There's great things about GTA 5, and it feels a lot better. But the story itself, I think GTA 4 is like way better. And so it would be awesome to see that kind of brought back to the forefront and give a lot of younger people the chance to experience that for the first time, because not everybody is going to go out of their way to reach back. I think you and I, you know, when we're like, okay, oh, this game's only available on this, all right, then I'll get that. That's fine. So, like, you know, there are games that have never seen the light of day since Genesis that we have the easy means to play again. Like, it's no big deal. Like for whatever reason, and not that this is like a super rare game, but if I'm like, I want to play Comic Zone, it's not hard. Or like Vector Man, like that, it's very easy. I could just grab a cart and play it. But a vast majority of gamers are not going to do that. They're like, if you don't put them semi-easy to play, like they'll never play it. And so a lot of games, unfortunately, get kind of forgotten at the time. And I know it's a crazy thing to say, like, hey, Grand Theft Auto 4 could be forgotten at the time, but that it really can be if they don't give it the care and love. Like, time marches on, and then keep in mind GTA 5, the fifth one, came out in 2013. There are people playing it there are people playing GTA 5 right now who were born after that game came out. And I know that's a trippy thought, but that's true. I mean, we're coming up, like, there's 9-year-olds online. And, like, we're coming up on the point where, like, there are people who are, and then again, GTA 4 didn't come out until 2008. We're talking about, what, like 14 years ago? There are people in high school who were born after GTA 4 came out. So, like, that game can be forgotten if they don't bring it back. And so I would love to see them kind of reinvigorate that again.
Yeah, no, that's completely true. And I feel like Rockstar is the ones to do this right. I feel like at some point we will get GTA 4 sort of remastered. I wouldn't be surprised if it's even later than after GTA 6, just because it would kind of make sense that way.
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption 1, we've heard for a while now. It's been, I feel like, ever since Red Dead 2 came out, that they've been talking about remastering Red Dead 1, or even, and I had a theory is that they were gonna bundle them together to re-release them on current, PS5 and Xbox Series, because obviously it's not a spoiler, but Red Dead 2 is a prequel to Red Dead 1, so Red Dead 2 ends somewhat at the beginning of Red Dead 1, so it'd be cool to sync them all, and it's, couldn't be a complete it's in a weird time, right? Because I'm sitting here thinking, no, there's no way they would go in there completely redo Red Dead 1 on the Red Dead 2, because
I would love them too, but
because all of Red Dead 1's map is almost in Red Dead 2 in a sense. Again, we're trying to avoid big spoilers, but in a sense it's there. But at the same time, you see the competitor doing it. Naughty Dog is basically remade Last of Us 1 in the Last of Us 2 engine, because now they're a seamless experience. It's like, it'd be cool to see that done with Red Dead, because it'd make the most sense. Obviously GTA, you can't do that between how old the trilogy is, moving them into 4, moving them into 5. Also, they're super unconnected. I would love that though, but it's also just like, I know it's a lot of work, and they're probably more focused on expanding forward, so I do agree with that. I do agree with that, though. It is weird.
Yeah, if any game I felt like from that world could really, really benefit from that kind of remake treatment, like what we're getting with Last of Us, I do think it's Red Dead 1. And I just feel like, you kind of mentioned it, like a good chunk of that map is already kind of made and cleaned up. And a lot of those character assets, like it is, like the kind of first half of that game is a lot of the characters from the Red Dead 2, the former game. And so I feel like they could really kind of reverse engineer what they did with Red Dead 2 and pump this out a lot quicker than a lot of people would think. And it would look gorgeous. And you just kind of pitch it as, like, this is a smaller experience. It doesn't necessarily need the, like, Final Fantasy VII remake treatment where they're, like, including and adding a whole bunch of stuff. They just be like, like this, almost kind of like a Resident Evil 3 situation where it's kind of built off of Resident Evil 2, because again it uses a lot of those same locations, so they kind of flipped it around a little bit quicker. I feel like it can definitely be a really cool experience, and maybe you sell $40 or something like that, and like there's a nice clean 15-20 hour experience or whatever where you can go in and experience the story of Red Dead 1. It might not have the online, it might not have all that, but it'll be beautiful. It'll run in the Red Dead 2 engine and it'll look great. I think that would be a really tantalizing offer to a lot of people. I personally would get that because like
right? Like it'd be dope.
And then again, Red Dead 2 is so beautiful and runs so good that, like, that 4K patch in Red Dead 1, don't get it twisted, like, it looks really good, but I would love to see that story continue, just because part of me, when I finished Red Dead 2, I'm like, okay, so I love this story, I want to see where it continues. I have seen where it kind of continues. It's Red Dead 1, and I was like, but it does feel kind of like a step backwards, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the assets look older, so it would be really awesome to kind of see that story remade and with that new kind of coat of paint, like now how you can experience the Mafia trilogy, for example, how clean that looks, without that kind of compromise in that experience. I think that would be really great, but they got a lot on their plate, and ultimately GTA 6 I think is the one that's most needed, to be honest with you. I mean, we're coming up on 10 years from the last one, and I, as someone who loves GTA 5, who's played hell out of it for the past 10 years or 9 years. I'm like GTA out, to be honest with you. I'm Los Santos out. I've seen everything. I've played everything. I'm kind of like, please give me somewhere else to go.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. You've put the work in on that game.
Yeah, hundreds of hours probably.
But again, we'll see. I feel it'll be a while before we get any more news from Rockstar in general. So we'll have to wait and see what they got cooking, if anything else besides GTA 6 and the sequel to GTA Online.
Bully 2.
Yeah, Bully 2. All right. So the last story we had here on June, I believe it was June 29th, a little bit after our last recording, we had a little Nintendo Direct Mini, which is weird because it was most of the stuff I was super excited for came out in a Direct Mini. So Nintendo Direct Mini focused on third-party developers, premiered June 29th, and here's some of the stuff that that was announced that we're excited for. And we kind of knew some of this stuff was sort of already leaked, especially this first one. Persona 5 Royale, Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 3 Portable will also be coming to Switch. We knew that there was, this was all announced at the Xbox conference, and we knew there was a lot of mystery and weird language at that Xbox conference, and even some sort of payoffs that they had to wait before they could announce these games were coming elsewhere, which was really weird because these games are coming everywhere. Steam, PlayStation 5 natively, Xbox, and now Switch. So really excited to see that. Anything to say on that one really quick? I think we kind of discussed it already.
Yeah, I've wanted that for the longest on Switch, but now with Steam Deck, I don't really. I have no use for that. I'm super happy that it's happening, but I'm playing Persona 4 right now on Steam Deck, and I'm 100% going to be playing 5 Royal and 3 on Steam Deck as well. So yeah, shout out to them, but I don't need this.
Yeah, I was the same thing. I was super excited. I'm more excited now that these games are everywhere now and will be everywhere at one point. And everyone has the only excuse not to play them is if you're not into these games. So no more quote unquote gatekeeping to this community. Next up on the list was something I was super excited. And I know I could already see your reaction when I think I may have sent you the link when it was going on.
Yeah.
We're in different time zones. So the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection has been announced. They're actually doing it. This is one of the big Mega Man. We're both pretty big Mega Man fans. This Mega Man Battle Network is such a specific version of Mega Man because it's so different. But it's something that I grew up on. I know you grew up on a lot too, playing these classic Mega Man games. Just so much different. Looking back at it now, it's like, man, I was playing grid-based battle games way before I even thought I would even like them. Super cool to see that they're bundling them all in there together. Because it seems like a lot of titles, but it's because they're giving you all the versions. They did the Pokemon thing back in the day where they would release a blue and red version or whatever they call it. They would call it like Sun and Moon and different things in this one version. It's super cool they're doing that. They're adding, all that. They're splitting it up like they've been doing with the collections, where I think they're splitting two. It's like Legacy Collection 1 and 2. Just because that's how they like to do it to, I guess, save money. But coming with a bunch of artwork, a lot of cool filters. I don't like the filter thing that they're putting on. It makes it look smooth. I actually like the classic pixel version in my opinion. But for it's there. They're all in there. How excited are you for this?
Oh my god, yeah, lost my mind. Yeah, when I was a kid, I was like obsessed with these games. Like, so they were my favorite. I played the hell out of the third one specifically. That was like my favorite for the longest. And I'm super excited to jump back into these. And it's totally something I actually didn't really see coming, just because I really didn't like Battle Network. I just didn't think that many people, like, I knew the people who love it a lot, but I don't think overall people cared about that. Like, it's not something I heard even really, like, Capcom acknowledge really at all, that kind of whole era. The last time I saw any mention of like Battle Network, I remember there was like a Mega Man like 15th anniversary or something like that, 20th anniversary, and they used the Battle Network Mega Man look. I remember that being a thing, so I was like, oh, that's a cool little kind of callback. But yeah, it's a very niche subgenre of the Mega Man community, because it's not a platformer, as you mentioned. It's kind of a grid action RPG type thing with almost like the chips double as almost like a card mechanic too, so it's a very unique kind of a take on that. And yeah, I was just a really big fan of it. And also, this is a great time because some of those are really annoying to track down. I have the third and the fourth ones physically, but finding, I think the second one is like really, the first one probably now too, is really tough. And can really, kill your pockets. So really excited to be able to play these and have them in a really nice, clean kind of collection. I had no need for every version of it, but it makes sense why you do that because it's like, I mean, it would be kind of weird for them also to arbitrarily choose like we only have the blue version. Like, yeah, I get why it's like you got it. It's kind of like if they decided to do a Pokemon collection back in the day, but it's like, are you going to choose red or blue? And it's like, well, you probably just throw both in there. So I get it. But it was kind of funny where they're like 10 games, and I was like 10. I was like, what, 10? What are you talking about? And then I look and I'm like, oh, okay, you got like every iteration of them. What I forget though, I remember there were DS ones, and I can't remember if that was just the fifth one, or did it go farther than that? Because there was like I remember I had like a subtitle. I have to look into that. But the Battle Network series went on to DS a little bit farther, and I don't know if those are in this collection. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember those?
Yeah. So I believe I'm gonna look it up right now. The last two Battle Networks, I want to say, was the
Star Force.
The Star Force series it's almost like a spiritual successor. It is its own thing. It's not connected.
Okay.
The biggest difference, obviously, the gameplay was very similar. It was very, very similar. But whereas in the EX world, it's I forgot what the main guy's name, but and then Mega Man was his digital avatar. In this one, the kid becomes Mega Man or something like that. The Star Force series was interesting, and when I originally saw that they said 10 games, I was like, oh, they shoved Star Force in there together because the gameplay is very similar. Obviously, that's not what it is. So obviously, the next collection is probably going to be the Star Force series, which also did the 2 versions of it. So I would be surprised if they didn't give us this. And that trilogy, that I want to say was only a trilogy. So it'd be like 6 solid games.
Yeah, there was less. The original one had 6, but Star Force didn't go as long.
Yeah, Star Force, I want to say, had 3, maybe 4 with double versions of it. But yeah, I do think there was a native... I'd have to really look into it. But I want to say there was a native collection on DS that brought... some reason, it was like Battle Network 5 and 6 together on DS, which you may have seen and may have been even thinking of. I want to say, I could be wrong, but I was pretty sure I saw that they did... Oh yeah, I'm looking at it right now. On the original DS, there was Mega Man Battle Network 5 Double Team. Some reason, just the 5th one. So, which was Team Proto Man and Team Colonel.
Yes,
on the DS.
I remember being confused in those days when it jumped to DS, and I was like, "Wait, what are these? I don't understand what you guys are doing anymore." But
it's super weird because I think it was just 5 they did it. I don't think they didn't do a collection for 6 on DS. Super weird. I do remember that time though, because that's where I think I played one of them. Well, both of them, because it was not a collection, but they just put them both together. Super weird.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to check. I was like, I'm pretty sure there was more and they're not in this collection, but that makes sense if it's kind of like a spiritual successor or anything like that, because I've never touched those. The last one I played was, I'm pretty sure 6. I played 6. I remember I didn't play 5 for many years, but I eventually played 5 as well. But yeah, no, this is gonna be great. It's gonna be a little tough to make it through all those games because they're not insignificant. Like there's a decent, they're decently long for each one. Yeah. So I'll try my best. I'm gonna try to go probably chronologically and just go through the first one, second one, third one. But yeah, we'll see. I'm very excited about this. Totally getting this though, for sure.
Yeah. I'm the same thing. It's like I know I'm gonna buy the collection day one. I know it'll probably take me a little while to go through it, but luckily I'll probably I'm most likely will get them on Steam Deck, and I just go 1, 2. I guess I'm gonna pick the version I didn't play when I was younger. So I think I played blue, so I'll play white. I think I ended up getting Colonel, so I'll play the Team Proto Man. Different things. I'll try to change it up, but we'll see. All right. Yeah. Continuing on. Next was it's something that we've announced for a while, but they've announced for a while, but it's been quiet because I know this is actually launching this year. The Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. They gave it a release date. We got a new look at it, a little gameplay trailer, which shows Bowser as a playable character, and they gave it a date, which is I think something that kind of even leaked, I think, on Ubisoft's website. that Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope will be releasing on October 20th. So pretty close. I know you and I actually think you were the one who convinced me to get the first Mario and Rabbids game, just because for what it was just a weird collaboration, but also a pretty cool XCOM type experience. I'm not sure if I'm going to be jumping into this one for full-fledged $60. I know I waited till Mario Rabbids was... That game goes on sale constantly. Like, you can get that game for like $15 new most places, 20 with the DLC. So how are you feeling on Mario and Rabbids?
Yeah, I'm definitely not playing this game. But, like, I thought the first one was very intriguing, and I got it, and I played it for a bit. I don't really like that game really much, but it's the gameplay style. It has nothing to do with, like, how good it runs or the design of it or anything like that. That whole style is just not really my thing. So I'm going to be skipping this one, but I think it's so interesting, the fact that this collab even happened. It's just... Seeing kind of Ubisoft have Mario in their hands is just super intriguing to me. So I always like keep an eye on it. But yeah, ain't no way I'm gonna play this.
Yeah, it's a super weird. It's one of those things that maybe way down the line. I never beat the first one just because where XCOM has a lot of things going on while you're doing it, this one's very quiet, I'm gonna use the word boring in some aspects. Nothing's going on while I watch a rabbit waddle down a bunch of stairs just so I can move Luigi 2 steps to watch him keep going down the stairs. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of waiting, so it's not for me. At least it's not a day one buy for me. In another world, this next one would be a day one. So we got the Portal Companion Collection, which is the ports of Portal 1 and Portal 2 coming to Nintendo Switch. In a world the Steam Deck didn't come out, I would be super excited for this. I was actually really excited for when they announced this. It's hard to be like, yeah, I'm going to rebuy it now when I was able to get almost every Valve game on Steam the other day, or a couple weeks ago when they were doing the Steam sale. I think it was like $15. You got super every cheap, Valve game. So I got from Team Fortress to both Portals, all that on Steam Deck. But again, for people who don't play on PC or don't play on Steam Deck, I think this is really cool. I think these games have also been sort of just put on the background for so long. I think they were made backwards compatible, but besides that, they were pretty inaccessible if you didn't have an original copy and an original system to play it on. So that's really cool. What did you think for Portal?
Yeah, really cool. Happy for him. Really not for me though, probably.
Yeah, it's just cool to see it moving forward. Next, they showed Nier Automata: The End of Your Edition. So yeah, Nier Automata coming to the Nintendo Switch. A couple new costumes, a couple new things. This is really weird in the sense that it's actually natively coming to Switch, coming with a bunch of DLC and things like that, just because Square's really weird with Nintendo. Remember that we got the Kingdom Hearts games only through streaming capabilities on the Switch. It's weird that we got Nier coming to Switch sort of natively. I'm not huge into Nier. This is one of those games that just keeps missing me every time I try to play this game. It just doesn't hook me. Everything about this game looks like it'll speak to me. I think I ended up getting it on Steam, so maybe it'll finally come to like really grab me. I just think from what I've seen and know about this game, it's really weird to see it running on Switch because how not bad but less well it runs. I think this is gonna be super locked to 30, and the frames are and the frames even dip from there from what I've seen people dissect. But again, if you're a Switch player, you're pretty much, if it's like your main console, you're okay with making the concessions, and you have a way to play Nier. I know you're a bigger fan of Nier. What'd you think?
Yeah, man, I love Nier. So this is really awesome that it's coming. I hope it kind of breathes a little bit more life into it for a whole new fan base, basically. I do have concerns about its ability to run. I'm really glad that they're at least giving it a shot for it to run natively. I always take that over kind of this streaming thing on Switch, just because Switch's streaming abilities is awful. So I'm glad that they're at least trying to get it to run natively. The only thing is there are like those shmup sections that almost get borderline bullet helly at times that I'm like, I just don't see how. There's a lot of stuff going on the screen, and those times were like it was pushing my PS4 back in the day when I was playing. So I imagine they're gonna have to make some serious concessions and crank that resolution down and have that 30 FPS lock, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it dip below 30 at times when it gets a little heavy. I'm sure it's gonna be playable. but it's certainly not going to be the prettiest thing in the world. But thankfully, it has a really nice art style that it won't fully cover the lower resolution, but I think it will certainly kind of like mitigate that a little bit and make it a little less terrible looking. Because if it went for like hyper realism, I could totally see how like rough that'd look. But thankfully, you know, it does have a little bit of a style and aesthetic to it that I feel like can kind of shield the Switch players a little bit from that lower resolution. So yeah, no, good for them.
Yeah, I'm excited. You know, there's a lot of sections that I remember playing that has a fog near due to the story. I feel like that's probably going to be pushed out. I think the draw distance may be the biggest thing going on for that.
For sure.
Next they showed up Harvestella, which is, I'm just going to read IGN's blurb because it's the best way to describe it. Square Enix announced a new game that combines the developer's fantastical RPG world with the lifestyle sim gameplay of Stardew Valley. Play as a villager and collect materials, grow a farm, and prevent the Quietus, the season of death, from destroying your idyllic life. It will be released on November 4th. I had to look at the trailer again this morning when I saw this on our docket because I completely forgot what this was. Then I remember, I'm like, oh, it's a game with like kind of just it looked like Rune Factory to me. So it was really, really weird that they're just kind of making another of these kind of games. There's some fishing, some weird plot-based farming, and then I saw people fighting unicorns. So it's really weird. What did you think of this?
Totally not for me. However, I know for an absolute fact that there is a very virulent fan base that is like super into games like this. One of them being Alyssa. She loves games like this. Mm-hmm. She's the one playing like, what is that? My Time at Porsche and all that and stuff. I can't with any of that kind of stuff. But glad for them, but it's not for me. When I look at it, I'm like, okay, I know people love this kind of stuff, but I don't really get it because it's just not for me. But yeah, I know for a fact that there are people who are losing their minds over this game. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was a weird back and forth when I saw this because like I would see some of the artwork be cool, and then I'd see the combat, and it looked kind of like, okay, it looks a little simplistic, but I liked some of the designs, and then I just kept remembering it's like probably so hard sim style, and I'm like, I don't know if I can get through that stuff to get to the good stuff, but I do know, I know that there's an audience for this, and they knew what they were doing, but they got it if they want it. Return to Monkey Island coming to consoles first on Switch. The new sequel to Monkey Island series coming to consoles first on Nintendo Switch in 2022. I'm not huge to the Monkey Island series. I know what it is. I've seen a little bit of it. I saw this and was just like, I know it's sort of a point and click puzzle game, and I know that's very low on the totem pole for me to even be excited to play. I just know there's like a sort of cult following to this series, and now they finally, they get a little new sequel. That's good for them. That's all I can really say. I'm like, that's cool for them. That's all. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, and I had to, when they announced it, I was like, is it what I'm thinking of? Because I remember hearing about, if you run in these sectors around like the Atari world and stuff like that, you hear about stuff. And so I remember hearing about Monkey Island, and I like looked it up, and I was like, oh, it's that old franchise. And it's had a number of titles that kind of, got brought up. It's kind of been a franchise, but it's been dormant for quite a while. And so this is it, kind of bring it back. It's kind of like, it's an adventure game. It's definitely not my kind of thing. But I do know there is a bit of controversy about this one, because back in the day it had a very kind of definitive pixel art style to it. And they really changed the art style for this one. And I don't really, it's very much kind of like a picture book kind of aesthetic now, to it. And people have been really nasty towards the developer about it. And I feel super bad about it. Like, I also don't love the art style, but I'm not a Monkey Island fan. And also, like, this is not the first time I've seen a game come back with an art style that I don't, like, love. And I kind of just, like, this is what it is. Like, was I in love with the way that the new ActRaiser looked? Not really, but, I mean, or, like, Bloodstained. I wish Bloodstained was probably, more pixel arty, but... I don't like go and harass the the developer over it. So I that's kind of where I heard a lot of the stories about it, where it's just like he is straight up like not posting on social media any updates about the game anymore. Like the game is still coming, but he's not showing any kind of like visual updates of the game anymore because people have been so mean to him. So everybody, be nice to the Monkey Island developers, but I'm also not going to play this. So
yeah, I've never been any interested. I just know like a long time ago it was LucasArts, and I think these were like, I remember first seeing Telltale. I don't know who's doing these new ones, but good on them, I guess, for keeping, if they really, again, if you're a fan of the series, I'm sure they worked with the rights to get it, and they're producing a new one if you want one. Yeah, unfortunately, you can't always get what you want graphically. But, you know, I didn't want Kingdom Hearts 3 to look like that, and I dealt with it, so.
It happens, guys, you know.
The last one on the list, one I was actually, I couldn't remember if this was announced prior to it, but I guess it wasn't. But Super Bomberman R2, a new game announced. So a new Bomberman game was announced for Nintendo Switch. So it's a sequel to the Switch launch game, Bomberman R, which later came to pretty much every system. And then there was that sort of free-to-play version, which was just the multiplayer aspect. But we got a new one coming out. They have a new little castle mode, which lets you guys like work a way up to a treasure chest, from what I remember seeing. And create some stages, a lot of share stuff. It looked more like Super Bomberman R, which I liked mainly just because they had a lot of cool Konami costumes in it when I played it. But I thought the story mode was kind of weak. It was very stiff. It's just not what I wanted in a Bomberman game. But again, it must have done well, especially with the free-to-play aspect of the sort of continuation they did. And we have a sequel coming out. Any thoughts on the Bomberman R?
Yeah, it definitely not playing this one. The only reason, honestly, I got the first one was because I think it was like one of 3 games that I think was out on Switch day one. That was physical. Like there was like a whole bunch of digital games, like that racer one. I forget the name of it, but but Super Bomberman R, it was like what is it? Was 1-2 Switch out day one? I think so. And then it was like Breath of the Wild.
I think those were pretty much the 3.
Yeah, and I didn't really want 1-2 Switch, so I got Super Bomberman R. I didn't really like it at all. It's not really my kind of thing. I don't really even like the older ones, and Bomberman R didn't really do it for me. So it's not like I think it's a bad game. It just didn't interest me whatsoever. So I'm not going to get it this time. But yeah, no, I'm sure the first one did great because they were in there early. I mean, again, to have your game be one of 3 right next to Breath of the Wild on Nintendo's brand new hardware, not a bad position to be in. So hopefully that kind of increased visibility that they got for the first one, which wouldn't have happened otherwise, I don't think, because Bomberman's not like a new franchise. Like it's been floating around for a long time. So I feel like those who like it, those who don't. But the fact that they were in that position got a lot of fresh eyes on it, and I hope that carries into success for the second one, because I want them to do well. But ain't no way I'm touching this.
Yeah, no, it's exciting to see, and I feel like, I don't know, Bomberman's just one of those things where it's like, when I think it was also, we're not going to really talk about it here, I think they bring it back a Pac-Man game. It's just one of those things where it's like when they try to translate it into a current game, just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't feel right when you play them. Because I do remember playing a little bit of Bomberman R and then being immediately like, okay, that's enough.
Oh yeah, those 3D Pac-Man games. I still don't know what the hell they're doing with that thing. Like I'm cool on that. I like Pac-Man, but I'm like very like classic. Like the most innovation I want out of a Pac-Man game is like maybe the championship version or whatever that's called. With the cool effects. Yeah. That's cool. But other than that, same gameplay style. And for me, like with Bomberman, like it's just very much an old school kind of thing. So like I don't really need all the extra touches, and if I get in the mood, I have like a million ways to play that classic one. But overall, did you think it was a solid direct? I thought they had some decent stuff. This was not a first party direct, so some people who were like upset that they didn't see more Zelda, I'm like, if anyone is good about telling you exactly what type of direct it is, it's Nintendo. So I don't know why. Like they're like, hey, this is our indies and our third parties and whatever, and then people are like, where's Zelda? It's like, do you not know what that means? But what did you think about it?
Yeah, I thought it was a nice little short, sweet direct. A little bit is we always kind of praise the direct minis for this, where it's like a little bit of something for everyone. I think it was super solid again to open up and be like, listen, Persona games are coming to Switch finally, because people have been asking that for a while. Again, for continuing the great Capcom collections they've been doing, we got the Battle Network games coming, which is a surprise. I pretty much thought that was it after the X games. The Mario & Rabbids thing coming, we knew that was probably going to be on the docket for this year. I thought we may have just gotten a trailer and then not even been part of the direct, but it's cool that they just focused on it. Again, you have the hardcore RPG fans if you want the Harvestella, the Nier, and those classic stuff, Bomberman, Monkey, and Monkey Island. So I think overall it was a cool short little direct just to kind of keep the Nintendo talk going when Nintendo more than anyone is in the quietest time in a long time. It's nice to see it just sort of not just drip feed us nonsense, but it's like, oh look, we got some pretty big titles too, especially for those hardcore only Switch owners.
Yeah, which there's not an insignificant amount of. So,
yeah,
I wasn't blown away by this direct, but at the same time, it's the direct that gave me a Battle Network collection, and it announced that Personas are coming to Switch, which, again, is no longer useful to me, but it's something that I've asked for a really long time. So, no, this is, ultimately, I can't crap on this direct. It's really, it was really a kind of a solid showing, and yeah, I think all of us are kind of at the point now where it's like, okay, that's cool. We love the partner showcases. Now, what the first party got, like, that's what I'm actually really excited to see. It's just like, because there is that whole narrative still to this day. Like, Switch doesn't really have anything to play it on it anymore, and they're washed and whatever. And it's been an interesting time for Nintendo where it's felt like it's been quite quiet for quite a while. You got the little Wii Sports thing, but that definitely came and went. Like, I was actually really surprised nobody cared about the Wii Sports. Or not Wii Sports, what is it? Nintendo Switch Sports or whatever.
Yeah, Sports Champions or no.
And did the Mario Soccer game come out too?
Yeah, that came out. Unfortunately, it also just
fizzled. Like, nobody cared.
It was just out in... The thing is, these last couple things, especially like the sports game, the Mario Soccer game, they came out and they're almost bare bones in there. I remember when I talked about it, I played it for I think a day, the Mario Strikers, and it was immediately like, okay, this is fun, but this is it. Like, I was like, this is it. This is like bare bones. Same with like the Mario Golf. I think it was last year that came out, where it's like people talked about it for a week and then immediately was just like done with it because it was just that. All you did was play golf. I know they had those little fun modes, but Strikers doesn't even have that. Strikers has the one mode, and that's all it is.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I don't mean to be like hyperbolic here because I'm not saying in any way that they're in the same place. But funnily enough, when I was thinking about just some of the newest Nintendo first-party games, I actually looked it up, what first-party games they've kind of put out in the last maybe year and a half or so, and it very much feels like 2013 to me, like 2013, 2014, like maybe like early to mid cycle of the Wii U, when things were coming out that were pretty solid for people who cared about it, but zero noise about it. Like, I remember they would release like Power Tennis or with a baseball game, and just no one cared. Kirby game, no one cared. You know what I mean? Like, it would come and it would go. Wouldn't make a splash. The Nintendo fans would play it. Some of them would like it, but that was it. There's a difference between like when things come out that are like actually really good, like a Forbidden Land or something like that. Nintendo fans obviously flock to it, but then there's that whole thing where it's like, hey guys, Nintendo has a good game here. This is definitely worth checking out, and some people will get Switches for that. Even outside the Nintendo ecosystem, they'll pay attention to it. They're like, oh yeah, they're doing a little thing over there. But it's a weird spot to see Nintendo back in, where like they're putting out things that it doesn't seem like anyone outside the most hardcore of the Nintendo fans even like are talking about, and it's just crazy to see. And so I'm hoping that with maybe like Pokemon, that it kind of like wakes things up a little bit again.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
Because I like it when everybody's kind of firing on all cylinders, because it's good for like gamers in general. But I do not like quiet Nintendo where it's like no one cares. But I think honestly it's at a point, unfortunately for them, where a lot of people are at the point where it's like, if it's not Zelda, we don't want to hear it, really. Like, if it's not a new like 3D Mario or Zelda game, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like we don't want to hear about it. And
that's true.
Like, people want Breath of the Wild, and I think they've kind of been tuned out to everything else. Like, they don't want to hear from Kirby. And then there's the other people. on the other side who are like, I don't want to hear nothing unless you're bringing back Star Fox. I don't want to hear nothing unless you're bringing back F-Zero. So they're in a weird zone right now where the super active franchises are things people do not give a crap about, unfortunately, for them. But I'm trying to put some use out of my OLED. So release something, Nintendo, please. Give me a Metroid or something. Give me, I don't know, a Switch exclusive Sonic game. I don't know. Give me something.
Yeah, they do need something. I think Pokemon will hold them later on. I think in November. I think the game is.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of time. November. That's the 11th month. We just started the 7th month. You just gotta be something.
Just don't put it out near Ragnarok. Just don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
But yeah, so that was this episode of the NeoVintage Podcast, episode 80. I'm Jabro, and I'm here with
Steve. Hope you guys enjoyed.
And we'll see you guys at the next episode. Bye.